and work with them and the victim of the crime to come up with a solution that works for everybody, including the community. So we can do really amazing new things like this to prevent people from even entering the system in the first place. And even if you do get into the system, to make sure that when you do get out, that you're trained and ready to re-enter the workforce and society. So yeah, there are a ton of things that we can do with respect to the criminal justice system. I think the best thing that we can do is invest in things like early childhood development, early childhood education, because at some point, we as a country need to decide if we're going to spend money on preschools or prisons. We're spending money on prisons now. That needs to stop. We need to invest in our children, and that's the best thing that I think that we can do for our criminal justice system. Yes, sir.
Andrew, real quick, you touched earlier on the snowpack. Your thoughts, just in general, on everything on the water from the Delta Smelt up to the Temperance Flat Dam. What are your thoughts in all this area? What is your heart?
Yeah. So for me, there is no silver bullet. There is no magic cure to the water issue. So there are many forces and factors at play, many interests that are involved in this process: state, local, federal. You know, we have environmentalists, we have farmers, and here in the Central Valley. You know, I can go line by line and talk about all the different things that we need to do. You know, some folks here in the Central Valley believe that if we build Temperance Flat Dam, that all of a sudden we're going to magically have, you know, new water. You know, that's not the case. Temperance Flat Dam works in years where we have good rainfall. Yes, I agree with that. So let's work on water storage, but that can't be our only focus. We need conveyance systems. We need to make sure that we recharge our groundwater aquifers in the Central Valley, and we do that by making sure that we have the canals in place to send the water out to the water basins. You know, I've been very honest about the Delta Smelt issue. I want to make sure that the science about that is right. I want to make sure that we invest a little bit more money in figuring out if there's another alternative instead of diverting water here from the Central Valley to those types of projects. My priority is here to the Central Valley. I think that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think that we can have viable working water projects while taking into consideration the impact on the environment. I think that we can do both. The narrative that has been pushed for so long is that you can either be pro-environment or pro-water. Right. I don't think that that's the case. And so we want to have policies in place long-term, like these climate agreements that we're talking about, so we can curb the constant increase in the temperature of our planet. And if we don't do that, we're not going to have the water that we need, and this is going to be a desert. And so I hope that that answers a little bit of your question. You know, I support water projects, I support storage, but that can't be the only approach to this. We need to invest in new technologies. We need to make sure that all of our farmers and growers are using drip irrigation. And you know, in the long term, in the future, we need to talk about desal. Right now it's really expensive and it's not good for the environment. So we need to invest in some of these projects. You know, places like Israel, they're doing this already. Yeah. Let's look and see what some of the other countries are doing.
I have a question. Are there any debates scheduled or forums where Nunez and you would...
Man, I wish. So last count, there have been 6 different organizations, news outlets, League of Women Voters, even Fox News. Devin has said no to every single one of them. And to me it makes sense. He's scared. He doesn't want to be on stage with a prosecutor that cross-examines criminals for a living. So it makes sense. And it jives with what he's been doing, right? I mean, this is his persona. He does not talk to constituents. He's not going to debate me on the issues. He doesn't have a ballot statement. He doesn't tell us where he stands on the issues.
He doesn't have a ballot statement?
Doesn't have a ballot statement. When you get your ballot statement in a couple weeks, open it up. You're going to see a statement for Andrew Janz and the things that I'm running on. You're not going to see anything for Devin Nunez. Go to his campaign website. You'd be hard-pressed to find any positions on there.
Vote yes on 6.
Yeah, vote yes on 6. Tell him to run for the assembly.
Yeah.
Yes?
I wanted to touch on what you said about pharmaceuticals. I have an illness that requires me to take medication monthly. In the 10 years since I was diagnosed, it's gone from $1,500 a month to $9,000. We went back, had a similar experience to Heather. I'm an activist leader for the Multiple Sclerosis Society. Went back, had an appointment with Mr. Nunez, waited in the hallway, and finally told he wasn't going to meet with us. We didn't even get an intern, though, so he got better than that. And we found out later he was actually on the White House lawn during our
Was it that infamous White House lawn one?
Oh,
wow.
Yes. We went back with what we thought every pharmaceutical company more than 5% increase per year. And we couldn't even get anybody on, on the right side to agree with that. And for me, it's not a right issue or left issue, it's a human issue. So that's what I appreciate about your campaign. I'm a no party selected voter. I vote for the candidate I like, not the party I like. Just lately, because of the way that the parties have moved, it tends to be on the left. But so I was just curious on your take on pharmaceuticals and how come our government, we actually have a policy that we can't negotiate prices. And it's just absolutely insane for people who have catastrophic illness. The cost with insurance, and as you know, with the county, I have to take the high deductible insurance because I can't pay for it on any plan. I have to come out of pocket with $3,000 or I'm down the tube on my medications. It's so expensive.
Yeah, these government programs need to be able to negotiate prices, number one, bottom line. And number two, a lot of these pharmaceutical companies get a lot of money from the government to do research and development. And so I think that there needs to be a provision out there that says that once they do develop the magic cure, the magic drug, that we should be able to have generic drugs that are able to be available to everybody here in the country. And so that's a discussion we absolutely need to have. The problem is we have pharmaceutical companies, big pharma, supporting Democrats and Republicans all up and down the ballot. And they are the ones that are preventing meaningful legislation on this issue. Another reason why I won't take corporate money. We need to make sure that their influence is waned and that we can go out there and do what's right for the American people. And there are other things that we can do with drug prices. You know, Canada does a pretty good job with what they do with their prescription drugs. Let's look and see what they're doing because I think that we can do better, absolutely. And thank you for coming out to this party, even though that you're a no party preference person.
Well, I prefer this party.
Okay, good. Me too. Yes, sir.
Could you share some thought on your thought on the national debt, considering I think this last year we borrowed $300 billion or something just to pay off the interest, and now we're at 21 and a half. What do you think is gonna? Where is that taking us down as a country?
You know, this is an issue that if you poll on this issue, you talk to voters, Republicans and Democrats, everybody agrees that we need to pay down our national debt. We need to have a balanced budget, but there's just an unwillingness to do it in Washington. And I like to go back and, gosh, can you remember when Clinton and Newt Gingrich were able to balance the budget together? They hated each other, and I think they still do probably. But they were able to come together for the good of the country and balance the budget and begin to pay off this crazy amount of debt that we have. And I think the only way that we're going to be able to do it is if the two parties come together on this issue. You know, Republicans always want to say that they're fiscally responsible. I don't see that. I really don't see that. And you know, Democrats have always been accused of being big spenders. But I think lately, I mean, look at what Jerry Brown's doing in Sacramento. He's actually being attacked by Republicans for having a rainy day fund. Can you believe that? And I think that he's been a very good steward of our state's economy and the state budget. And so as a potential member of Congress, you know, the Congress has the power of the purse. That is our job to make sure that we have a budget that works for everybody and a budget that's responsible. So for me, it's about priorities, going back to what Nate was talking about, making sure that we rein in some of this government spending with respect to the military-industrial complex, making sure that corporations don't get these wild tax breaks, because the thought is, right, we give money to a billionaire, we give money to, I don't know, FedEx, somehow that trickles down to all of us, you know? We're still waiting for the money to trickle down from the Reagan era. I haven't seen it yet. And trickle-down economics doesn't work. You tell me,
Never
a
has.
PhD here in economics is telling you that trickle-down economics doesn't work. And so we need to make sure that our priorities are straight. And none of these companies are giving their workers, after they got these tax breaks, any additional benefits. They're not hiring new people. They're not expanding wages. And so this clearly isn't working. They're using that money to do stock buybacks and other things that increase their bottom line. And they're giving their CEOs raises, by the way. That's not the right approach. For me, if you want to give a tax break, the best place to give a tax break is to working class families. Because what? We're going to go out there and we're going to buy cars. We're going to buy TVs. You give a millionaire a tax break, he might buy one car, he might buy a TV, but there's so few of them. There's way more of us. And then let's talk about our student loan debt issue. That is a tax on the millennial generation. Talk about, you know, people getting started in life, not being able to buy a home, not being able to get married, not even being able to buy a car. My wife and I were in this situation. I owe more on my student loans than I do on my house, and it shouldn't be that way. And we need to go back to a time where our country, our communities, our state prioritizes education. You know, at some point, we were worried that the Russians and the Chinese and the Europeans were going to outpace us with respect to science and technology. We don't care about that anymore. It's sort of a free-for-all where everyone's expected to pay for their own education. You know, education is something that's for the common good. It helps our country, and so we need to return to a time where we invest it. I totally strayed from your initial question, but wanted to make sure I threw in education there.
I mean,
Probably one more question, and then Andrew's happy to hang around, answer any other questions, take photos, sign you up to phone bank and Canvas, all that good
Did you
stuff.
have a
Thanks,
follow-up?
folks.
Did you have a follow-up, or?
from what I understand, is it's in the tune of 1.3 trillion a year. That's corporations and the 1% are getting tax cuts. And if you take that away for 15 years, our debt will be gone. 15 plus years.
Those numbers sound right. I'll have to look into it. Yes, sir.
Could you comment on the campaign finance reform?
Yes. I think that, number one, corporations are not people with respect to this issue. I don't think that they have. I don't think that giving unlimited amounts of money to a political campaign or a candidate or even a cause is speech. I mean, they could, you know, they can send out stuff, whatever, that's speech, but, you know, equating money with speech, I think, has been a troubling development within our country's jurisprudence. And with this new Supreme Court in place, I think that it's going to be highly unlikely that we have any meaningful laws on the issue without either restructuring the court or passing a new constitutional amendment. So I think that Congress is going to be limited in what it can do, but some of the basic things that we can do with respect to campaign finance reform is to address the issue of lobbying. People like Devin Nunes, when they lose or when they retire, they go out and they lobby, and they get huge sums of money, and they funnel that money into other campaigns and other people's runs for office and things like that. So for me, you know, the best that I can do from this standpoint is symbolically to say that I'm not going to take corporate money, and try to set a good example for other candidates that are running all across the country, because the only way that I can change it is if I can get an army of other people to be in Congress to help me support this type of legislation. And so we have a number of candidates that have signed up to not take the corporate money. Not enough, I don't think, because the thought out there is that if you don't take that corporate money, you're going to be at a disadvantage. But I think that this campaign here in the Central Valley has proved them wrong. Without taking corporate money, we've raised more money than anybody else in the state of California on the Democratic side. We are number 3 in the nation, behind Beto O'Rourke in Texas and Danny O'Connell, who was running in that special election in Ohio. So we are an example of